Hi, I'm Christina, and this is a book review of Briefly Very Beautiful by Roz Dineen. This was published in 2024 and it's been shortlisted for the Climate Fiction Prize in 2025. I have been really enjoying following the Climate Fiction Prize. It's a brand new prize for this year and it's a genre that I absolutely love, and it is such an important genre. This is the second book that I have read from the prize, so let me tell you a little bit more about this book. Our main characters are a family of 5. The mother is called Cass, the father is called Nathaniel, and they have 3 children together. The eldest is called Vi and he is 8 years old, Mags is 4 years old, and the baby Daisy is 10 months old. The first 2 children are not Cass's biological children, they are Nathaniel's biological children. He had the first child with his first wife and the second child with his second wife, and sadly both of his first 2 wives have died, so Cass is the only mother figure for all 3 children in their family. Now this is set in kind of it's not post-apocalyptic, but it's kind of getting towards post-apocalyptic. So we are living through an awful climate crisis, and Nathaniel is a doctor and obviously he has a very good job, and Cass is now a stay-at-home mum looking after the 3 children. So essentially Nathaniel decides to leave. He goes abroad and he's going to be a doctor abroad and he's going to try and help. Essentially, one of the biggest things in this climate catastrophe is fires. Fires are widespread, global, and they're causing just so much damage. So essentially, Nathaniel leaves to go abroad to try and help people, and it is part of his specialism as well. So he's a very important person. He could really make a lot of difference to a lot of people's lives, but obviously in doing so and in leaving, he does leave Cass alone in the city with 3 very young children and really nobody else to protect them at all. Obviously she's got an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old and a 10-month-old. She's got her hands full, and really she's kind of been a little bit abandoned by him in a sense. Obviously you can say that his reasons were noble and righteous to try and help other people, but kind of in the same process of trying to help people, he has abandoned his wife and his 3 children, essentially. So let me tell you a little bit more about the climate disaster in this, because I think it's very well done and it's very, very interesting. So the climate catastrophe in this feels very real, very immediate, and it feels like this is what could happen just a few years from our own today, essentially. And it starts with small things at first, and this does start to feel eerily similar to the world that we live in now. So I think it does hit very close to home at times. So one of the first things that Cass notices is her eldest child, Vi, needs an inhaler. So she goes to the doctor and he basically tells her that there is a shortage of inhalers. So essentially you're just going to have to kind of make do the best that you can and then come back to us when it gets really, really bad. Obviously, that's not great advice, but there has been times, hasn't there, when there are kind of medication shortages. So that doesn't feel too dissimilar from the world that we currently live in. And then I'm just going to read you a quote from one of the pages because I think it really sets the scene to the climate catastrophe these characters are living in, and just gives you a really good glimpse of how this starts in this book in particular. So this is on page 8. Every aspect of society had grown slowly worn and useless over years. The hospitals, the schools, the transport, the food, the bills so heavy, the bureaucracy slow-motioned into a farce. Nothing quite as reliable as it once had been, and every citizen had learned how to make their own imaginative way through the fainter provisions, where once they hadn't needed to, where once they had leant against the steady forces of what they were entitled to. The summers became longer and longer and hotter still, and extended into the other seasons. People built their own private economies of barter, borrow and play to your strengths. And so for some weeks there was a plague of butterflies, thousands and thousands of butterflies all at once, so many crowding the streets, dead ones becoming undone, floating on the river. And I just think that really does feel eerily similar to today in terms of, you know, the transport in the UK, the train system, it's not great. The price of food has shot up astronomically. The bills so heavy, you know, the price of gas, electricity, water, they've become so much higher in recent times. And just the way that she's kind of painting the picture into a world that does feel eerily similar to our own. And then she takes it one step further and kind of shows us more about the climate catastrophe. Another very interesting aspect of this book that she introduces is a climate activist group, and they are essentially a terrorist organisation. They are called Gaia, and they're essentially eco-terrorists. And this is a group of people that is organised exclusively by and for men. So in today's terms, we would probably call them incels. And they're called the Gaia attacks. They will just go and kill people indiscriminately. And the idea is, you know, the earth is dying because there are too many people living on the earth. So the population is out of control. And so the way they're going to fix that is kill people en masse to try to protect the earth. And they essentially worship Mother Nature kind of as a god, if you will. And they are more than happy to kill a large group of people and kill themselves at the same time, because of course, if they kill themselves too, they are still reducing the overall population and therefore helping to protect the earth. And interestingly, they're not targeting a particular group of people. Oftentimes in history, when you see attacks on people, people are being attacked because of their race or their religion, their identity. It isn't like that at all. They aren't murdering people based on sexuality or gender or age or race or anything at all. They are just killing people literally en masse. They will go to an area and just whoever happens to be there will die, and they're absolutely quite fine with that. So it's an interesting kind of organization that she has created, because like I said, in history, oftentimes people are persecuted because of one certain thing, but here it's more of a wrong time, wrong place kind of thing, to be perfectly honest with you. And yeah, it's an interesting concept how she introduces them. And it gets quite dangerous to live in the cities because the Gaia attacks get really, really dangerous. And as you said, they're killing men, women, children, all ages, all races, all sexualities. Anyone at all could die in these attacks because it is just kind of completely random. It is just where you are at the time. So I found that very interesting. So we have two main threats in this story. We have the threat of humans themselves with the Gaia attacks, and obviously you might not know who belongs to Gaia, so almost anybody could be a threat, and it is essentially, it's men only that are in this group. But apart from that, there's not really any other features you would be able to decide who might be a part of Gaia, who might not be. So obviously that's put a lot of people on high alert, and there is a lot of terror and a lot of just people being very, very scared because you've no idea who might be part of Gaia, and you also have absolutely no idea who or where they might attack next. And then the other massive threat in this story is the threat of fire. There are multiple fires at the time, and because it gets so incredibly hot and then the fires move at such a pace, some of the smaller fires kind of join together and then they become much larger infernos that are just sweeping countries, sweeping entire cities, sweeping the globe essentially. So yeah, I found it really, really interesting. It was very well written, actually. I liked all of the aspects of the climate fiction. I thought it was very well done. It felt, like I said, very real, very immediate. It felt like this could genuinely happen, and I had no fault at all with any of the climate fiction aspects at all. It was very, very strong in that sense. The thing I wasn't so keen on, actually, was actually kind of the relationship between Cass and Nathaniel. So the climate fiction is very strong in here. It's a really, really important theme. It is the driving force of this story. It's essentially the entirety of the plot and the setting. But another large part of this story is the relationship between Cass and Nathaniel. And I have to say, at times, I get a little bit bored of their kind of relationship drama. There was times when I got a little bit bored. It just came a little bit dull to me. I love the climate fiction aspects of this. It was brilliant, absolutely cannot fault it. But there were times when following their relationship dynamic wasn't so interesting. And I think there is a little bit more of the cliches between what happens with them in terms of kind of infidelity and just kind of like typical relationship drama. And I just wasn't as into that aspect. Also, we see kind of a wider group of people. There's also a group of people that are kind of living together in kind of like a community hub kind of way of living outside of society. And we also see Nathaniel's wider family. So his mother plays quite an important role in this book, and so does his brother, and then the brother's partner. And kind of seeing how Cass and the children interact with the wider family, and how Nathaniel interacts with his wider family, even though he is quite absent from a lot of the story because obviously he's in a different country. And interestingly, the story is told mainly in Cass's perspective, but there are moments and chapters where we have like an interlude with Nathaniel, so you get both sides of the story. You follow Cass for the majority of the book, and you also follow Nathaniel for little parts of the book. So it isn't just a one-sided story where you hear everything Cass thinks and you never hear from Nathaniel, so you don't 100% know if what she's saying about him is true. We also get Nathaniel's side of the story. And yeah, I'd say I wasn't quite as into the relationship stuff, the relationship drama. And there was some interesting dynamics, I think you would say, between Nathaniel's mother and her children, and just her type of character, and how she's treated her children and how that has shaped them and affected them growing up as boys and then turning into men. And then also the relationship the mother has with Cass as her daughter-in-law, and kind of the power dynamics, and just how she treats her, and kind of the difficulties around that. So yeah, overall I enjoyed it. I've given it 4 stars. I would say this would have been a 5-star read had it not been for a lot of the relationship drama and some of the kind of cliche stuff that happens in their marriage that I wasn't as interested in. But yeah, the climate fiction side was excellent. Really, really enjoyed it. Can absolutely not fault it. And I think, yeah, it's a really great inclusion on the Climate Fiction Prize. It really makes you think. She really sets the scene very well. And having those 2 big threats, the fires and then the kind of climate activist group, kind of terrorist organisation, very good. I enjoyed it. So yes, if you have read this one, I would love to know what you thought of it down in the comments below. And if you've read any of the other books on the Climate Fiction Prize, I'd love to know what you thought of those too. Thank you so much for watching. Please do like the video if you've liked it, and please do subscribe if you'd like to hear more of me talking about books. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.